There is a neighborhood you drive through and feel a specific thing, not quite envy, something quieter. The sense that the people who live here have done something you haven't done yet. The house says it, the car in the driveway says it, the lawn says it, and then the data arrives. And the data says something completely different. In 1996, 2 researchers spent years tracking down actual millionaires. They expected to find them in neighborhoods like this. They went to the gated communities. They surveyed the luxury zip codes. They knocked on the doors of the large houses. And they found almost nothing. The people behind those doors were spending at the rate their income allowed, which left almost nothing to accumulate. The millionaires were somewhere else, on a completely different kind of street. This is the story of where they actually were, and why everything the culture told you about wealth is pointing you in exactly the wrong direction. The most popular car brand among American millionaires is Toyota, not Mercedes, not BMW, not the brands that signal wealth in every advertisement, every aspirational post, every cultural shorthand for having made it. Toyota, followed by Ford, followed by Honda. The vehicles driven by the people with the highest net worths in America are the same vehicles driven by everyone else. Sometimes older, often paid for in cash, almost never leased. The large house in the right neighborhood does something specific to a financial life. It sets a floor on everything else. The mortgage payment determines what's left. The neighborhood determines the school, which determines the expectation, which determines the cost of raising children there. The neighbors' cars determine what a normal car looks like. The neighbors' vacations determine what a normal vacation looks like. The house is not just a house. It is a commitment to a cost structure that compounds across every subsequent decision. And the people who live in those houses, the ones with the right address and the right car and the right everything, are statistically not the people with the highest net worths. They are the people with the highest consumption. Income and wealth aren't the same thing. For example, a doctor earning $400,000 a year with a net worth of $600,000 spends most of what he makes. And an electrician earning $90,000 with a net worth of $1.4 million saves and invests most of it. The doctor earns more. The electrician keeps more. The difference isn't talent or luck or intelligence. It's the gap between income and spending, and what happens to that gap over time. There is a mechanism the researchers identified that explains why high earners so consistently underaccumulate. They called it the neighborhood effect. When you move into a neighborhood to signal arrival, you surround yourself with people spending at the level you aspire to reach. Their cars become the reference point for a normal car. Their vacations become the reference point for a normal vacation. Their children's schools, their kitchen renovations, their wardrobes, all of it becomes the water you swim in. And the brain, wired for social comparison, recalibrates normal upward to match the environment. What felt like luxury at $80,000 a year feels like baseline at $200,000. And so the spending rises to meet the income, and the gap that was supposed to generate wealth closes before it ever compounds. The researchers published their findings in 1996, before social media existed, before Instagram made other people's consumption a 24-hour broadcast, before the neighborhood effect stopped being about the street you lived on and became about the feed you scrolled through. The mechanism is the same. The scale is incomparably larger. The reference point for normal spending is now set by the most aspirational version of the most aspirational people in the most aspirational moments of their lives. Curated, filtered, presented as ordinary, and the brain, still wired for social comparison, uses it anyway. The neighborhood effect now has 2 billion participants, and most of them have no idea it's running. If this is making you think about where your money is actually going, the 30-day spending reset is in the description. 1 month of tracking, no judgment, just clarity on what the neighborhood effect might be costing you. The researchers interviewed thousands of millionaires. They were looking for what the quietly wealthy had in common. The first one was so obvious it was almost disappointing. They lived below their means, not slightly below, significantly below. The gap between income and spending was not an accident or a sacrifice. It was the strategy. Everything else flowed from it. The second behavior was intentionality. The quietly wealthy spent more time planning their finances than the average American because they understood that money unmanaged flows toward the path of least resistance, which is usually someone else's pocket. Attention, applied consistently, is a financial tool, and the people who treated it that way accumulated differently than the people who didn't. The third behavior, they believed financial independence was more important than looking financially successful. That single orientation, choosing the balance sheet over the facade, determined almost everything downstream. The house they bought, the car they drove, the neighborhood they chose, the schools their children attended. The doctor chose the house in the right zip code because his colleagues expected it. The electrician chose the house he could pay off early because he didn't care what his colleagues expected. One built a life that looked like wealth. One built wealth. The fourth behavior was self-employment or business ownership. The majority of first-generation millionaires in the study were not climbing corporate ladders. They had built something, a business, a practice, a trade, where income was not capped by a salary band and accumulation was not subject to someone else's approval. This does not mean entrepreneurship is the only path. It means the people who accumulated most found ways to decouple their income from the direct exchange of hours for dollars. The researchers found something about generational wealth that ran directly counter to the instinct of most financially successful parents. They called it economic outpatient care, the regular financial gifts that wealthy parents give their adult children. Down payment assistance, car payments, tuition supplements, monthly transfers that make the child's life easier. The intention is love. The effect, statistically, is reduced accumulation in the recipient. The more financial support adult children received, the lower their own net worth tended to be, because the pressure that builds financial muscle was removed before it could do its work. The quietly wealthy tended to give their children something different, the belief that financial independence was achievable and worth pursuing, the expectation that the child would build their own floor. The modeling of what living below your means actually looks like in practice. These are not assets that appear on a balance sheet. They compound anyway. The child who grows up watching a parent choose the modest house carries that reference point into their own adulthood. The child who grows up watching a parent signal arrival carries that reference point instead. The inheritance was given long before anyone died. Wealth, at the level most people are trying to build it, is invisible. It sits in brokerage accounts and paid-off mortgages and businesses that generate more than they cost to run. And the people who have built it have almost universally done so by opting out of the performance of having built it. The signals of wealth, the cars, the clothes, the addresses are more often than not funded by people who are consuming their way through the income that could have generated the real thing. The millionaire next door is not a myth. They are simply not performing. And in a culture that rewards performance above almost everything else, they are almost completely invisible. So what do you think? Let me know in the comments and don't forget to like and subscribe.